When did making plans get this complicated? It's time to streamline with WhatsApp, the secure messaging app that brings the whole group together. Use polls to settle dinner plans. Send event invites and pin messages so no one forgets Mom's 60th. And never miss a meme or milestone. All protected with end-to-end encryption. It's time for WhatsApp. Message privately with everyone. Learn more at whatsapp.com.
Hello, and welcome to It's a Fandom Thing. I'm your host, Erin Marlowe, and each week I'm joined by a panel of guests to discuss all things fandom and pop culture, primarily from a female perspective. You'll find everything from fanfic, to cosplay, to Schitt's Creek, to Supernatural, and everything in between. So put on your favorite piece of fandom merch, set aside that fanfic that you're writing about your OTP, and sit back and enjoy this week's episode. Hello, and welcome to It's a Fandom Thing. I'm your host, Erin Marlowe, and yes, believe it or not, we are wrapping up Music Month and our celebration of grunge. It always goes by so fast, but I've had a lot of fun talking about these bands, and we're going to be wrapping up with a look at Pearl Jam, the most marble-sounding band. Marble's, the voice of Eddie Vedder. I'm sorry, I appreciate Eddie Vedder. I like him. I appreciate a lot of this music. I actually have been crying a lot this week listening to Pearl Jam. But it is true that a lot of times you can't understand what he's saying. But I am excited to talk about Pearl Jam, who I think, Nirvana and Pearl Jam, as far as like in the general public, the general scheme of things, even people that don't listen to grunge, I think they were the most well-known of the two. So that's why I kind of wanted to bookend it with them. But joining me for this episode and returning from last week and the previous week is Sara. Hello, Sara.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining me. I'm excited to talk about Pearl Jam. And I'm going to give everybody just a little bit of a Wikipedia description. I also want to say I'm so glad to end this without having to talk about a singer's death. Can I just tell you how nice it is? And it's such a relief that the last thing we're going to be talking about is not the death of somebody. So I'm very grateful.
All members are alive and well, as far as I know.
I'm just so grateful for that. That's been the hardest part for me personally, is having to look into all that stuff. So anyway, but I'm going to give you a brief overview. I am going to give trigger warnings only because I think some of the stuff that Pearl Jam talks about or deals with has to do with, so here's the trigger warnings before I forget. So it has to do with like depression, bullying, feeling like an outcast, stuff like that. So I did want to just give a little bit of a trigger warning there. But once again, we aren't going to have to talk about a singer dying. So yeah. Okay, so Pearl Jam is an American rock band formed in Seattle, Washington. Shocker.
I'm so surprised.
In 1990. One of the key bands in the grunge movement of the early 1990s, Pearl Jam has outsold and outlasted many of its contemporaries and is considered one of the most influential bands from the decade. Dubbed the most popular American rock and roll band of the 90s. The band has consisted of guitarists Stone Gossard and Mike McCready, bassist Jeff Ament, and vocalist and guitarist Eddie Vedder since its formation. The band had a revolving cast of drummers throughout their early days, including Dave Crewson, Matt Chamberlain, Dave Abruzzes, and Jack Irons. The band's longest tenured drummer was Matt Cameron, who joined the band in 1998 and departed in 2025. Keyboardist Boom Gasper has also featured with the band as a session and touring musician since 2002. Pearl Jam's members often shunned popular music industry practices such as making music videos or participating in interviews. The band unsuccessfully sued Ticketmaster in 1994, claiming it had monopolized the concert ticket market, which it has. In 2006, Rolling Stone described the band as having spent much of the past decade deliberately tearing apart their own fame, which I have to say, this is what kind of makes me appreciate this band, is this kind of stuff. So, yeah. Pearl Jam had sold more than 100 million albums worldwide by 2018, including nearly 32 million albums in the United States by 2012, making them one of the best-selling bands of all time. Pearl Jam was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2017 in its first year of eligibility. They were ranked 8th in a reader's poll by Rolling Stone magazine in its Top 10 Live Acts of All Time issue. Throughout its career, the band has promoted wider social and political issues, such as abortion rights, sentiments, and opposition to George W. Bush's presidency, with Vedder acting as its spokesman on these issues. Reminder, everybody, we are under a horrible, horrible regime right now, but do not forget that Ronald Reagan, George Bush, all these other people, both Bushes, not just George W., but all of the Bushes, are not good people either, or were not good people either, and helped lead us to where we are. So I'm sure Eddie Vedder would agree with me on that. Mm-hmm. So I just want to get that out there since we did mention George Bush. So what I first want to know, Sara, like I've asked on all of these episodes, what song or album was it that turned you into a Pearl Jam fan?
Oh, it was definitely 10. And to this day, it is still like one of my top 10 favorite albums of all time.
Boom, boom. Sorry.
Yeah. Starting with the jokes today. Yeah, that was definitely the album that made me a Pearl Jam fan. And I remember like that album was huge when I was in high school. Probably my junior year. I think it was junior year that it came out. But yeah, you could not go anywhere without hearing a song from that album. And I remember when I actually bought the album, I was I think it was Sam Goody. And God, yeah, I know.
My God.
See, kids, back in the 90s, we actually had what were called record stores. And we would go there to purchase music. It was awesome. They were actually playing the album. And it was like, oh, that's right. I really wanted to get this album. And I remember why I remember this, I have no idea. And the cashier actually, like, did us playing this music influence you? I'm like, it actually reminded me that I wanted to pick it up. So thank you. But I think the first song I heard from that album was Alive. And I don't know, there was just something about them about Pearl Jam that I connected with. I've never seen them live, unfortunately. I don't know how. I have no idea how I haven't seen them live. But I just connected with them. I connected with their music. I had a huge crush on Eddie Vedder when I was like 17.
I think a lot of people did.
He still looks adorable.
Oh, he's really attractive now. I didn't really have a crush on him back then, but he is so, sorry to interrupt, but he's so flippin' handsome. He has aged so beautifully.
God, he's got to be, 60 now?
Well, he was born, let me look that up. You can continue. I'll look that up.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, he had a huge crush on Eddie Vedder back in the day. But yeah, that album still to this day, one of my favorites of all time. Like I could just listen to it from beginning to end. There's no bad song on it. All bangers, as the kids today are saying, I guess. I have to learn the slang from my children. Mom, no one says that anymore. Okay.
All bangers.
All bangers. Yeah, just an overall great album. I think it's one of the few, one of the first times I think I heard them was on MTV, as opposed to the normal radio stations that I would be listening to at the time. Yeah. But even their latest album, Dark Matter, is amazing. Absolutely love it.
Well, like I have said, this is not my genre of choice, but I think Pearl Jam did something that the other bands that we've covered didn't do. And it kind of was talked about when I was talking about the Wikipedia thing, is Pearl Jam kind of, I don't know, crossed into other people like him that didn't like other grunge bands.
Yeah.
And I think it's because, for the most part, they're not as hard as some of the other grunge bands that we've covered are. And I think that's why they were able to capture mainstream audiences a lot more, even though that's kind of the antithesis of who they are, but they still were able to catapult into the mainstream. And the way I actually saw them in concert, I saw them in concert before they hit it big. It was right before they hit it big. They opened along with Smashing Pumpkins. Oh, wow. And that was before Smashing Pumpkins hit it too. And Smashing Pumpkins, I want to say, before they hit it big, were so much darker than they were. But they opened for Red Hot Chili Peppers. And let me just say, I do not like Red Hot Chili Peppers anymore. I didn't like them after I saw them in concert. That happened to me with a few bands. But they opened and nobody knew who they were. It was like Pearl Jam and then Smashing Pumpkins and then Red Hot Chili Peppers. And usually when you have bands opening like in that order, the first band is the least known because then if people are coming in later, it's not as much of a big deal if they missed. So even though they weren't really a band that I listened to a lot, I still knew their music and still listened to them occasionally. With the exception of the Jeremy song, I cannot listen to that song. It is like nails on a chalkboard for me for very personal reasons. The first boy I ever fell madly in love with was named Jeremy. And this song was like right around that time or in that time period. And I just remember it was like, I don't know why it reminded me of him. And so it ended up being this thing that ended up irritating me. But listening to them now for prepping for this, it's the same thing that I've experienced with the other bands, is this more intimacy with their lyrics, I think, as an adult, which has been such an interesting experience. So, like, I've cried a lot listening to them. And I think Eddie Vedder's voice, even though a lot of times I can't understand what he's saying for some songs, it does sound like he has marbles in his mouth.
It's called the Jarl.
It's just so hard to understand something that he's saying. And it's been an ongoing joke, of course, since they first came out.
Oh, I know.
But even though it's hard to understand sometimes what he's saying, I still think his voice and the way he sings, and it has this kind of like, there's anger in some of the songs, but there's also this almost like welcoming, open arms kind of thing. And like very kind and caring, and like, he's turning 62 this year. And so like almost like like an older brother or father like figure kind of feeling. So it's been interesting listening. And I have to say, I didn't think it was going to happen because I didn't feel this way last week. But I think this is definitely Pearl Jam is number one for the ones we have covered as far as how impactful the music has been personally. I don't necessarily think they are the most talented of the ones we've covered or the most impactful lyrically, but I think for personally, definitely the biggest impact there. Yeah. Okay, Sara, I know you said last week this was going to be the hardest one for you. So was this the hardest one, coming up with your 3 of your favorite songs?
Yes.
You look very like in pain. You look like you are plotting my destruction.
No. Never plot your destruction. No.
So what are 3 of your favorite then?
Well, I'm afraid to say my number one. No.
Oh, is it Jeremy? I'm sorry, Sara.
Apologies. But I get it.
You have to apologize. It's a personal thing with me. It's not the song. It's because of the personal.
There's some songs that like I used to love, and then it just reminds me of like someone that I'm like, oh, I don't want to be reminded of this person anymore. And now I like hate the song. But yeah, so I get it. No, I mean Jeremy is my number one, and that I don't think has ever changed. Like I was just kind of blown away the first time I heard it, and then the video that went along with it was just heart-wrenching. It kind of came out at a time in my life, well, high school, because whoever these people are that say high school is the best years of your life, those are definitely peaked in high school people.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's not the norm. But it just, I just very much connected with it. And if you haven't seen the video for it, I mean, just lots of trigger warnings. Lots of trigger warnings for that one. Just abuse, self-harm, suicide. It hit a nerve with me. My second one is Better Man, which that one sort of came out when I was in a relationship at the time, and I wasn't necessarily happy all the time, but that one just sort of stuck with me because it deals with, and I think, there's a lot of women that go through this, that we don't deserve better, or we can't have something better. We're not going to find something better with this. I think that's one of the things, like Eddie Vedder, he is very much in tune with women, I think. I don't know how to elaborate on that, but do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. Yeah.
And women and their emotions. And I mean, just he's always been very, very vocal about abortion rights and things like that. He's been that way. But that one, I mean, it just, she lies and says she's in love with him, can't find a better man. I think there's a lot of women in toxic relationships like that, where they just think that this is what they deserve. And he really, I mean, with the lyrics on that one, they're just absolutely fantastic. The third one is from their latest album, Dark Matter, is Scared of Fear. There's a very personal reason why it's become one of my favorites, which I am not very comfortable sharing right now. So, but I haven't listened. That album came out, I think, 2 years ago, 1 year ago, 2024. I think it was last year. There's a lot of great songs on that album, but I hadn't listened to them in years, and I was reading all these like fantastic. They're like, oh my god, it's a great album. They haven't written like this one. So I gave it a listen, and that one just I gravitated towards. And there's a couple lines in there, and I'm not going to share what they are and why, but that one has now replaced my original, probably third favorite. I won't say because we're only supposed to talk about 3. Not going to mention what that was.
Thank you for following the rules, Sara.
I'm trying to follow the rules. I mean, it was hard to choose because there's so many amazing songs from Pearl Jam.
And Better Man was on here as one that, like, this is why it's great that I get to go last, because I can just be like, okay, well, I won't mention that one because that got mentioned.
Oh no.
So first I'll just say Black, the song Black. That one is just like, I don't know. It's weird to say fun to listen to because it's also very emotional, but it's also fun to listen to. It's like a combination of the two. And that's what I think is so interesting about Pearl Jam's music, is that it's so emotional. There's so much emotion in every song, even if it's slow, fast, whatever, it doesn't matter. But also a lot of them can be fun to listen to. And that's kind of the way I view this one. And it's also just a great way to kind of, I don't know, first, I think it's a great song. There are several songs. I think the whole album 10, but I think there are several songs that are good gateway songs into Pearl Jam. And I think this is one of them. And even though I have my own personal quibbles with it, I do think Jeremy is also a good one that's an introduction. I think Better Man. I think those are all really good ones to kind of get your toes wet, so to speak, in their music. So, yeah. And then the next one is Yellow Ledbetter, it's just so much, it's just kind of fun album, and it's a little bit bluesy. And I like that. I appreciate that. That's got that sound to it too. A little bit jazzy, a little bit soulful in a way too. So I really like that one. And then the last one is the song Why Go? And the reason I'm choosing this is it's very personal actually too, but it also speaks to, I think, something that people weren't really talking about. And this is my own personal view on this song. And especially when you have like lyrics, like this whole thing of like, she scratches a letter into a wall made of stone. It's been 2 years and counting since she's been put into that place. And that she's been diagnosed by some stupid fuck. And mommy agrees, with the exception of the mommy agrees part, because I will say I was very lucky that I had a mom that fought for me. But this reminds me of the fact that, and I've mentioned this before, in the 90s and in the late 80s, a lot of kids, a lot of teenagers were hospitalized. It was a big industry. It was an industry, okay? People were making money. And I had tons of friends that were hospitalized. I was hospitalized. And it was this industry. It goes with the same thing of like all the, like camps that they had and the, wilderness camps. It was kind of along that same, it was in that same field of like, this is how we're going to make your kids better. Kids would be in there that had ran away, and that's why they were there. They were just having difficulty. I'm not saying there weren't kids there that needed to be there, but for the most part, it was just teenagers being teenagers and their parents didn't want to deal with them.
Yeah.
And then these industries got to make money, and they just basically drugged the kids and made the kids were usually worse once they left. And this is what I think this song is speaking to. And a lot of people weren't talking about this stuff back then. And so to have someone talk about that and have someone that's an adult talk about that, because yes, he was a hip, cool adult, whatever, but he was still an adult. And to have someone talking about that and using music to talk about it means something, I think. So that's why I chose that one. It was a personal reason. So
that was actually my third.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
that
that's so funny.
for that exact reason.
Wow, that's so funny. I love that though.
I was not a victim of that, but I have been. I was hospitalized for a suicide attempt when I was 21, and I mean that was I wasn't a minor, so that was my choice to do that. But yeah, there was a lot of that going on. There was a lot of that, and I had a couple friends that they just kind of disappeared from school like one day, and couldn't get in touch with them. Nothing, like they just vanished, and that's what was happening. Is they were, being put into these institutions, schools, different things for. I mean, a lot of them really it's what parents thought was a behavioral problem, but it's kids being kids. It was sort of the 90s kind of satanic panic, I guess. I mean, it just that, what's wrong with my child and trying to find something to blame when, a lot of times there is, or what, they just need someone to listen to them.
Yeah, saying it's like the satanic panic is a good way to put it, because a lot of the people that would be in these hospitals and in the psychiatric facilities, I was never sent to like a wilderness camp or anything like that.
No.
But the kids that were in these psychiatric facilities, a lot of them were the outcasts or a lot of goth people, a lot of punks, a lot of the quote unquote freaks were put in here because maybe they listened to darker music, they dressed differently. For the men, they might have worn, like eyeliner, other things like that. And so for a heteronormative and just a normative and just like society in general, it was threatening to people. And so I think that's part of why. And once again, I was very lucky. I was put in there against my mom's wishes. So I will say I was very lucky to have the mom I did, because I got a misdiagnosis. And if I didn't have the mom I did, I don't think I'd be alive. There's like absolutely no way I would be alive right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because they basically told my mom to say goodbye to the daughter that she knew and that I was never coming back and I was going to be in hospitals for the rest of my life. And then magically when the insurance money ran out, I was cured and fine.
Wow.
And I was like worse than I was before. It's incredible. Like they told me, because I was hospitalized, I was put on a 72-hour hold, which can still happen as an adult.
Oh, absolutely.
And I've been in the hospital as an adult, but it was a 72-hour hold because I was suicidal. I was feeling suicidal. Teenage emotions going on really was what it was. And then after that 72 hours, I met with the staff there, and they said this hospital no longer exists, so I can badmouth them all I want. But they said, okay, Erin, you can either voluntarily commit yourself for a week, or we will go to a judge and get you committed for a month. So it was basically like a threat. So I'm like, okay, well, what's the better way? And when you're in there, you're not learning how to get better. You're learning how to get better at lying how you are. And that's just what happens. You get in there and you get really close to the people in there, the kids in there with you, and you all know the ways and the things to say in order to get more privileges, because you get privileges. You're basically being punished for being a teenager and having emotions. And once again, I'm not saying there aren't people that should be there. I'm not saying don't seek help, because I do think sometimes it can be depending. I think a lot of places aren't very well run, but depending, that's all money and, all that stuff. We won't get into that, but I'm not saying not to seek help or anything like that. And there were definitely kids in there that really needed to be there, that were really severely ill. But for the most part, most of the people that were in there were just normal teenagers. And when I got out and then I found a school that I went to, that's the only way I graduated high school, a lot of the kids in there had the same situation or even ended up having it while I was there. Like the person that I spoke about with the Jeremy song. So yeah, it was a big epidemic, honestly, at that time. So yeah, I'll never forget, one of the beautiful things my late dad did for me was the hospital that I was at closed down, and he cut out the newspaper article of it closing down so I could keep it. And then he's also like, do you want to drive by there and see it just being just gone? So, one of the beautiful things my dad did for me. So yeah, I was very lucky, but a lot of people didn't have parents that listened. So I was one of the lucky ones, but that's why I picked that song. But anyway, we could go on and on about this subject.
Oh, God, yes.
But I'm going to stop now. But thank you, Sara, for being vulnerable and sharing, and never ever feel like you have to share anything on this podcast. I just want to make sure everybody knows that out there. But I appreciate so much when my panelists do, because I know it's not an easy thing to do. So thank you. Okay, so we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the lasting impact of Pearl Jam. So we'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Checking off the boxes on your to-do list is a great feeling. And when it comes to checking off coverage, a State Farm agent can help you choose an option that's right for you. Whether you prefer talking in person, on the phone, or using the award-winning app, it's nice knowing you have help finding coverage that best fits your needs. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
This episode is brought to you by eBay. We all have that piece. The one that's so you've basically become known for it. And if you don't yet, fashionistas, you'll find it on eBay. That Miu Miu red leather bomber, the Custo Barcelona cowboy top, or that Patagonia fleece in the 2017 colorway. All these finds are all on eBay, along with millions of more main character pieces backed by authenticity guarantee. eBay is the place for pre-loved and vintage fashion. eBay, things people love.
Okay, Sara, so as much as you feel comfortable sharing, what has been the lasting impact of Pearl Jam on music and on you?
This is always a tough question, too. I mean, they had a huge, massive impact on me, like as a teenager, going into my young adult years, just because their lyrics were so relatable and they were comforting. And I mean, there are still songs that, that I will listen to today. Like I have my whole, this sound horrible, but I have like my depression playlist. So like if it's the playlist that I have, when I'm like, okay, I need uplifting music, and it's like, the most depressing music you could possibly listen to, but like, it makes me feel better.
Mm-hmm.
So like Jeremy is on there. That's on there. I've got, other artists on there, but we're not talking about them. So their music, even to this day, is still very comforting to me. It's like it's like a big hug. It's like a hug. And as, lasting impact on music in general, like with Nirvana and Soundgarden, and I mean, I don't know about Alice in Chains, but definitely Nirvana and Soundgarden. I mean, I still see a lot of kids listening to those bands. They're kind of, to this generation, like the Gen Z, I guess. Yeah, that's what my kids would be considered. Like Gen Z, I feel like those bands are to them like what we would consider classic rock.
Yeah.
Led Zeppelin and the Doors and the Rolling Stones. It's like, hearing Pearl Jam on the classic rock station on Sirius XM is just not like, no. Why? Okay, yes, I realize 10 came out like almost 40 years ago, but no. But I feel like for that generation, that's their classic rock, and they're still listening to. I see kids. Well, when I was still picking the kids up from high school, I would see kids in grunge t-shirts all the time. kids walking around in Pearl Jam t-shirts. And, parents like, yeah, I took my kids to see Pearl Jam last night. I'm like, oh, that's so awesome. and that's, as a parent, it's awesome to see, to be able to share the music that you grew up with your kids and to have them connect with it. Maybe not the same way you did, maybe in a different way, or they just like the music, whatever. But it's a way to, when they do that, it's a way to connect with your kids, to have that bond, because it could be so difficult to connect with your kids at times. But I mean, they also influenced, there was a next generation of somewhat grunge music that they influenced, like Creed. I see a lot of similarities in like Scott Stapp's vocal style, along with Eddie Vedder.
Yeah.
And that's that Jarl, as they say. And that's exactly how they describe it. It's like you're singing with a mouthful of marbles. But there were other bands like that came out that they had influence on. And they are still touring, and they are still selling out arenas. So they are still immensely popular, not only with us Gen Xers, but with, some of the younger generation too. So it's nice to see one of the grunge bands still around. I mean, Alice in Chains is still around too, but without Lane Staley, I think there was something missing. Even though their new vocalist he's good, but I think there's just something missing without Lane. Yeah, it's nice to see that they're still around and still touring. So maybe I will get to see them live one day. Fingers crossed. I just have to pay attention.
Hopefully you'll be able to.
Even if I go by myself, I'm like,
yeah.
Okay, I'm kind of at that point. I'm like, no one wants to go with me. I'm going alone. Peace out.
Yeah. I mean, you get to the certain age where sometimes it's more fun to go to things alone. So
yeah, it really can be.
Yeah,
you make new friends.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I don't know as much personally, except for that it's had more of an impact lately on me as an adult listening to it, preparing for this episode. I will say, and I'll share more of this when we talk about Eddie Vedder's solo work, because I will say his solo work on the Into the Wild soundtrack was very impactful for me personally. But I'll get into that more in our next segment. We just talk about that. But as far as the lasting impact on music, yeah, I mean, I really, like I said, I think this is, of the four bands we've talked about, the one that crossed more boundaries than others as far as like lots of people listening to it. And it is interesting to me that now you have a younger generation that is doing the same thing we did with our parents' music and listening to it, like, and loving it and embracing it. Like on TikTok, it's amazing how many TikToks come across my For You page by young people that are maybe teenagers or early 20s talking about musicians that were around when I was like a kid or a teenager. And it's like, whoa, it's kind of like a mind fucking away.
It is.
It's like,
oh my God.
Wait a minute, this cannot be happening. But it is. I'm like, you're what? Like you're 20 maybe, and you're sitting here dissecting and talking about Kurt Cobain. And I'm just like, this is God. Totally weird.
Yeah, what universe am I in?
Yeah, but it's cool at the same time because then, music is lasting and people are still discovering it. But it is that thing of like, I'm old. When people are dissecting this music, that was like, when I was younger. But that's what I think happens with every generation is they go and embrace. We embraced the 60s and the 70s to an extent too. And then this generation, it's more the 90s. So it's like, it's just, that's what happens. And when there's a band that can last and stay and still make music and still tour and still be together, that's saying a lot, period. So, but to still have that impact and to still get new fans also says something too. And I think a lot of that is because I think a lot of the lyrics in Pearl Jam's music are universal and can be understood throughout different decades. It's not just relegated to like what was going on in the 90s, with the exception of a couple of things, but it's not relegated solely to that.
No.
So I think that's another reason that they have a lasting impact. So yeah, I mean, and personally, like I said, it's more current that I've cried listening at that time. It wasn't so much. It was more like during that time, it was more like, Violent Femmes was the one that was big for me. That was like Violent Femmes was like, and you can hear about that when we talked about Violent Femmes like a couple of years ago. But they were the band that for me was like all my angst. And I discovered Violent Femmes when I was in the hospital as a teenager. This guy that was in there with me said, this is who you need to listen to, and gave me his like tape. Yes, a tape. And my life was changed. And I'm not even kidding. I have seen them more than any other band live. Although, as I said in that episode, last time I saw Violent Femmes live, I was supremely disappointed. It wasn't very good. But I've seen them so many times that it makes up for a one bad performance. But then later on, after I graduated high school and everything like that, like Depeche Mode, of course, became that more than Violent Femmes. And then also New Order is big like that. And then also Nine Inch Nails. And I'm the same way, Sarah. Like if I'm really depressed, I listen to really depressing music.
Yeah.
It just helps. It just honestly helps. It's like, oh, I'm not alone. Or also, I think it's not even just that. It's like a way to get out through lyrics, through music, how you're feeling inside that you might not know how to get out or express. And I think that's what can happen. And that's why, like, for me, the self-titled Violent Femmes album, every song on there pretty much is like a song about what I was going through as a teenager. I mean, the song Kiss Off is like,
oh yeah,
holy crap. And added up, those are like those songs of like, this is what teenage angst is this is teenage angst. And I don't know if Violent Femmes is one of those that's getting discovered by younger generations, but it's that's kind of how I feel, like in the same realm of like Pearl Jam was like that for some people. And there were other bands that were like that for some people too. So, and I mean, Violent Femmes, that album came out in the 80s. So it was like, I was kind of listening to it later on in the 90s. So
I just make me feel even older.
Sorry.
No, but I get it. Cause it was I talking about, I think it was like the first Metallica album. And I'm like, that album's like 40 plus years old. Holy shit.
I know it's hard because you don't think you're going to ever get old. You don't.
I know. I forget who I was saying to. I'm like, oh my God. Oh no, that was you when we were at the trivia.
Yeah.
And like, oh, my doctors are younger than me now.
Yeah, it's weird. It's so weird. It's so weird.
It is a weird feeling.
It is. It's a very weird feeling.
But we're going to be an awesome older generation.
I hope so.
Gen X needs to be in charge of shit.
Some Gen X. Some Gen X is on the dark side. So it's like.
Yes. Yeah, there's certain ones that know they shouldn't be in charge of anything. Yeah. But that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to take another quick break. And when we come back, we are going to just talk about Eddie Vedder's solo work. So we'll be right back.
Eczema isn't always obvious, but it's real. And so is the relief from Ebglyss. After an initial dosing phase, about 4 in 10 people taking Ebglyss achieved itch relief and clear or almost clear skin at 16 weeks. And most of those people maintain skin that's still more clear at 1 year with monthly dosing.
Ebglyss, lebrikizumab, LBKZ, a 250 milligram per 2 milliliter injection, is a prescription medicine used to treat adults and children 12 years of age and older who weigh at least 88 pounds or 40 kilograms with moderate to severe eczema, also called atopic dermatitis, that is not well controlled with prescription therapies used on the skin or topicals, or who cannot use topical therapies. Ebglyss can be used with or without topical corticosteroids. Don't use if you're allergic to Ebglyss. Allergic reactions can occur that can be severe. Eye problems can occur. Tell your doctor if you have new or worsening eye problems. You should not receive a live vaccine when treated with Ebglyss. Before starting Ebglyss, tell your doctor if you have a parasitic infection.
Searching for real relief? Ask your doctor about Ebglyss and visit ebglyss.lilly.com or call 1-800-LILY-RX or 1-800-545-5979.
Okay, so even though Pearl Jam, they're still together, they're still making albums, Eddie Vedder has done some holo work. What the heck is that? Solo work in his career. The biggest thing he did was he did the Into the Wild soundtrack. He's done other stuff with movies as well. So, Sarah, what are your thoughts on Eddie Vedder's solo work?
I actually don't know a lot of it. Unfortunately, I know a little bit from the Into the Wild soundtrack. A couple things a couple songs I recognize, but I don't actually know a lot about his solo work. I know I'm a bad
No,
Gen
you're not.
Xer.
No, you're not.
But I mean, the couple things that I've heard, they're definitely, I mean, they still have that emotion of Pearl Jam, but it's softer,
Mhm.
if that makes any sense whatsoever. Maybe a little bit more introspective. I don't know if that's the right word either, but that's just based on the couple songs that I've heard. I really probably should check out more of his solo work and take a listen after all these years. So that will be on my to-do list. I will remedy that.
Well, then I'm sorry I put this question on there.
That's okay.
I was just like, it was replacing the death question. And I was just like, okay, let's talk about this.
No, it's okay.
Yeah. Eddie Vedder's solo work, mainly just for the Into the Wild soundtrack, but he's done covers of songs as well. Because I totally agree with what you're saying. What I think it is it's more intimate in a way.
That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, because it's more about him, and I think also him getting older and kind of letting go of some of the stuff that he was consumed with in his early 20s, and everything like that with Pearl Jam. And of course, like we said, Pearl Jam is still together, but I think his solo work is a lot more intimate, and especially the work that he did for Into the Wild, which is a movie that means so much to me. And that's why it's so painful to me that it was directed by an asshole, stars an asshole, alleged assholes, whatever. And the only, the only thing I can say is that I own it on DVD. I've owned it for a long time. So they would not be getting a single ounce of money from me watching it, because unless they have stock in the electric company, they're not going to get anything from me. But that movie, and I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, Sarah, but
I haven't.
It's a very intimate movie it's a true story about Chris McCandless, who he died in Alaska because he went out on a solo journey across the parts of the United States. And then he got lost in Alaska, found a bus there, got lost. He allegedly, the way he died was so spoilers here, but this is kind of like information.
That's a true story.
Yeah. But he accidentally ate the wrong part of it was starvation. He starved, but the other part, which is an awful way to die, but the other part of it is he allegedly might have eaten poisonous things, and then he mistaked the way the veins were on a plant and all of that stuff. But that movie is a very personal movie about a journey of somebody who, it's very Gen X, I think, but it's of someone who is not feeling connected to the world of their parents or the world of capitalism, and goes out on this journey of self-discovery by themselves, and then in the end learns that the biggest thing is to experience joy and love with other people, not just by yourself. And that's the biggest lesson he sadly learns right when he dies, because there was something that Chris McCandless really did right that was about that before he, on the bus and stuff. And so that movie was such an intimate journey for me in a lot of ways. Personally, I won't get into the big thing about it, but that to me was like my entryway, in all honesty, to Eddie Vedder, because like I said, I was not as connected to the Pearl Jam when I was growing up. But when this movie came out, I have never cried so hard at a movie in my life. I cried for hours when this movie was over. It was like this cathartic experience in the movie theater that I will never forget. And the soundtrack really added to that. The songs on this soundtrack are amazing. The music, and how it is such an intimate and personal soundtrack about a person going through self-discovery and then discovering something when it's too late to really keep living with that self-discovery, which is, it's a tragedy. It's a tragic story, but there's also some beauty in it, some healing in it. And so that was when I became a huge fan of Eddie Vedder. So for me, his solo work, in particular on Into the Wild, has had a more lasting impact on me than, say, Pearl Jam. And so that's probably why I put this on here, because it was a more personal question. But yeah, I think that it is very different from Pearl Jam, not necessarily in the music wise, but in the lyrics. It's very intimate and personal. And I think introspective is a good way to put it too.
Yeah, but intimate is the one that's what I was looking for.
Because it's very intimate. That soundtrack is so good. Like, even people that criticize the movie, for the most part, I don't remember seeing anybody criticize the music and the soundtrack and everything. Because it was incredible. It was really, really good. It's one of the best soundtracks ever, hands down, period. Yeah. So, and someday I really do want to talk about that movie on this podcast. I'm just like, But, we have to do that all the time on this podcast. So we've done it tons of times before. And so, someday I will, because that movie does mean a great deal to me personally. So, So it is time, though, to play 6 Degrees of Mr. Finn Wittrock. Did you do this, Sarah?
Okay, so this is what my notes have told me.
Yes, your research.
Eddie Vedder performed at a concert for COVID-19 relief. Somehow Joel McHale was involved, who was in a futile and stupid gesture with Finn Wittrock.
I loved this because this has to do with like a performance and a concert, and Joel McHale, the king of playing assholes.
Oh my God.
No
he
one
was like the ultimate asshole in The Bear.
And in Community. And I mean, he's just so good at playing assholes. He's just, there's really something about him. He knows that smarmy look that he has, and he plays into it.
Yep.
And I mean, I love Joel McHale, but
and he's probably like the nicest guy in real life.
My theory is, if you're really good at playing assholes, a lot of times it means you're actually a really nice person.
That's what I've heard too.
I maintain that he probably is, but yeah, he's so good at playing assholes. So I used Into the Wild, and Catherine Keener was also in Into the Wild, and Catherine Keener was in the movie Capote with Philip Seymour Hoffman, who appeared on stage with Finn Wittrock in Death of a Salesman. So plus I was happy to be able to use that because of the fact that I mentioned on our pop culture and fandom news episode, The Long Walk, featuring Cooper Hoffman, who is the son of the late, great, amazing Philip Seymour Hoffman.
I didn't realize that was his son.
Yeah. And when you really realize it and you look at them, and if you see them side by side, it's like, it's amazing. And there's a line in, I forgot to say this on the episode, but on the pop culture episode, but there's a part in The Long Walk when Cooper Hoffman's character is talking about his dad. And it was, oh my gosh, it was so heartbreaking just thinking about Philip Seymour Hoffman when he was talking about his dad. So, yeah. And also, I always love to when I can use Philip Seymour Hoffman and when they were on stage together, because Finn Wittrock has said in interviews that his favorite movie, or one of his favorite movies, is Magnolia. Okay. Magnolia is my favorite movie too. So I'm always like, see, Finn, you can come on, talk about your favorite movie. I gave him that opportunity when we covered that movie, but
got to step up, Finn. Sorry.
We'll get him on this podcast someday. He will be on this podcast, and I will make him play 6 Degrees of himself. Plus, Finn, once again, is an actor that uses his platform for good. His biggest thing is the environment, and that's what he mainly uses his He's only on Instagram. I think he used to be on, I don't know if he's still on Twitter, but he uses that mainly for the environment, sometimes to plug his own stuff, of course, but for the environment. Okay, well, thank you so much, Sarah, for joining me for this one and for a bunch of the other ones we did this month. I really appreciate it. I love our music month. And I know this is probably our most popular among listeners, is our music month. So
I love music month.
Yeah, I hope everybody out there has enjoyed it. And I get such a great joy out of knowing that people love us talking about music. It was one of the biggest and nicest surprises from doing podcasts. So from doing this podcast. So thank you so much for listening. Even you Christmas music cult people out there Whoever you are, you're probably not listening to this. So.
It's not Christmas music. I mean,
but thank you. So we're going to go ahead and close out. And Sara, tell everybody where they can find you.
You can find me on Instagram, NateCamMom, that is NateCammom, or on TikTok at Sara A. Barnick, and that is SaraABarnaik.
Awesome.
I'm not very exciting, though.
Oh, stop it. Thank you so much, Sara. And it is that time of year, spooky season, and we're kicking off our celebration next week. And you can follow the horror-loving dog, Fergie, on TikTok at Schroeder and Fergs. That's SCHROEDERANDFERGS. It's long, but it's worth it. To find our past catalog of episodes, to find links to all our social media, including our Discord, where we have different channels discussing everything from politics to pets to movies, TV, fan fiction, everything you can imagine. Head on over to our website. It's a fandomthingpod.com. And while you're there, consider becoming a Patreon supporter today. For as little as $3 a month, you get bonus content. You get ad-free episodes. Eddie Vedder would love that.
Yes, he would.
You get early access to episodes. You get bonus content, like I said before. And you occasionally win prizes, like for our upcoming horror trivia event, which is taking place in just a week from the time you're listening to this. You get to choose your player. So we have contestants. You choose your player. You get their points. I'm also doing this thing, to make sure it's not just a huge tie for first. And you don't have to know anything about trivia, and you can win prizes. So, hey, just for as little as $3 a month. Yes, exactly. So click the link in our show notes or head on over to the Support Us tab on our website, which again is it'safandomthingpod.com. And next week, we are turning over to Horror Month. And I'm very excited because we have 5 Fridays in October. Yay! And Halloween is on a Friday. So our lineup is we're going to start with Sinners, and that is going to be Tiff, Carla, and Kim joining me for that one. And then we're going to talk about the original Fright Night. And then we are going to turn to a couple of horror comedies. And those are Tremors, starring, Kevin Bacon. So I'm going to make my panelists use Kevin Bacon to connect Finn Whitrock. That's what I always do when we're covering anything with Kevin Bacon, because we wouldn't have this game without Kevin Bacon.
No, you wouldn't.
And then we're going to talk about arachnophobia. And then we're rounding it out because it is my podcast. And the final Friday of October is on Halloween. We are going to discuss the 1978 Halloween. So John Carpenter's Halloween. So I'm very excited. We did do an episode discussing the series as a whole a few years ago, but I wanted to do an episode just diving into the first Halloween movie. So I am, of course, looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to the entire month because it's my favorite genre, and I love talking about it, and it's one of my favorite months. I love the Burr months are the best months.
The Burr months are the best months, yes.
They really are. September is probably my least favorite of them, I'll say, because you still got a little bit of the summer there, and it's like...
I know. No, come on. Get below 80 degrees, finally.
Yes.
Hey, we're looking at a high of 55 on Tuesday.
55? I thought it was only 70s.
55 on Tuesday, yeah. I think
55?
It's Tuesday. Yes.
55? I'm sorry. I'm like, what? I can't drive 55. Sorry.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Holy crap. I'm going to be so happy that day. Oh, my God.
I'm like, yes, I can go outside and not melt.
Oh, my gosh. That's so exciting. I'm just ignoring the 80s coming up later in the week.
I know. We'll deal with that when it arises.
58 degrees. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Sorry. I'm so happy now. Okay. Well, thank you again, Sara.
Thank you.
And until next time, remember, it's a fandom thing. Black Lives Matter, stop Asian hate, and free Palestine.
Doug. Here we have the Limu Emu in its natural habitat, helping people customize their car insurance and save hundreds with Liberty Mutual. fascinating. It's accompanied by his natural ally, Doug.
Limu? Is that guy with the binoculars watching us?
Cut the camera. They see us.
Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Savings vary. Underwritten by Liberty Mutual Insurance Company and affiliates. Excludes Massachusetts.
For a limited time at McDonald's, get a Big Mac extra value meal for $8. That means 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun, and medium fries, and a drink. We may need to change that jingle.
Prices and participation may vary.